Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Democracy Report. We're a little bit early today, just have more stuff to do. But today is May 5th, 2025. Get all this out of the way first. Please like and subscribe. And, if you do like the content, greatly appreciate it. You can support the channel at buymeacoffee.com/the Daily Democracy Report or scan the QR code at the bottom left. And you can also follow us on Blue Sky. So with all that said, and you can find all that relevant info at the bottom of the screen. So with all that out of the way, it is Monday. It is another weekend where Donald Trump went on just a tirade of Truth Social posts and things and interviews. So he is doing a lot of interviews. I guess that's a good thing, but don't like really what he has to say. But he was on a couple news shows, or at least one, Meet the Press, which we're going to show a little bit of. And yeah, there's lots to talk about today. So there's a lot going on. So I wanted to focus on just a few things. Trump has announced that he wants to reopen Alcatraz. We're going to talk about that a little bit. He wants tariffs on movies made outside the United States to save Hollywood. And he's made a bunch of statements that, he says he's not sure whether he has to or wants to uphold the Constitution that he swore that he would uphold when he entered office a little over 3 months ago. So we're going to talk about all that. So first off, let's get to the first clip here. This is with Kristen Welker. She asked him a bunch of questions during this interview from Meet the Press this weekend, about a lot of topics, right? So there's a little clip here that I want to show. It's only about, a little less than 30 seconds, but kind of a montage. And this was taken from CNN, kind of put all this together for us. But this was from Meet the Press with and Kristen Welker is interviewing Donald Trump. So let's take a listen to this, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Campaigned on a promise to bring prices down on day.
Well, I don't know.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says.
I don't know if that's constitutional.
Don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know.
Is anyone in your administration right now in contact with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia to the United States?
I don't know.
So a lot of I don't knows there. And so here's my take on it. I think that he knows that all of these things is potentially something that's going to come out in court, and it's going to come out maybe to the Supreme Court. And he just says, I don't know, because he doesn't want to pin himself to any type of verbiage, anything that could come back to haunt him later. Doesn't want to open his mouth and say anything that's going to incriminate him or what he's trying to do. So the simple thing is, well, I don't know whether I can or can't. I'm not a lawyer. I can't say whether this is constitutional or not. I never read the document. I swore and uphold it, but I don't really understand it. I don't know what all this means. So just basically playing dumb. He knows the answer. He knows where he's going with it. He knows it. He has also said, I'm not really talking about it, but he also talked about running for a third term and said he's not looking to do that. Maybe others are looking at that, but he's not looking to do that. So basically keeping himself out. But we know, we talked about it last week, that his, his, I don't know what you call them, minions running around talking about, Steve Bannon and others that are talking about, we're looking into how Trump can get in to a third term because, somebody of his pure genius only comes around once in a century, and we have to embrace it. We have to give him as much time as possible to screw up our country as much as possible before he gets out of office. So good, interesting stuff with that. So let's move on. But that's my take. I think he knows exactly what he wants to do. He's just deciding to say I don't know to all these things because he doesn't want to commit to it because then he's held to it. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about Alcatraz now. So let me play the clip first, and because if you haven't heard the news, this is crazy stuff. So this is from the CBS News in the Bay Area. So this is KPIX reporting this. So can't get more local than that, I guess. So here we go.
New Truth Social post from the president in the last hour calling for the reopening and expansion of Alcatraz. It's been closed since 1963. In the post, Trump says, in part, in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anyone they could harm. He went on to say, that is why today I am directing the Bureau of Prisons, together with the Department of Justice, FBI, and Homeland Security, to reopen a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders. Again, that came out in just the last hour. Alcatraz is currently a tourist attraction here in San Francisco. A spokesperson for the Bureau of Prisons said in a statement to the AP, the agency, quote, will comply with all presidential orders.
All right, so there you go. There's Alcatraz coming back. Let's talk about that for a little bit here. So we're trying to, the Trump administration, since taking office, has been saying how the fraud, waste, and abuse, and there's so much spending that we shouldn't be doing, and Doge is out there just cutting massive amounts of crap that they have no idea what they're doing, and then has to reinstate some of it, or just has no idea what the heck they're really doing, but they're just cutting everything. And I agree that there's probably wasteful spending in the government. That's always been that way. It always will be that way. And reining in on that, I think, is a good idea. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. It's just how you go about doing it. And then doing something like this, like, what does reopening Alcatraz have anything to do with anything? It was done back in the day. It is a bad idea for many reasons. I'm going to talk about some that people have been talking about. Reopening Alcatraz and expanding it the way Trump is wanting to do will probably cost somewhere between $235 and $370 million up front. So that's just the upfront cost. The annual operating cost could go up to 60, and I've heard some estimates as far as $75 million a year in operating costs. And that is because of where Alcatraz is in the middle of the bay. Everything has to be brought in and out, including, waste from the, refuse and waste and everything from the island has to be carted off by boat. Everything has to be brought in by boat. It's a lot. It's a huge expense. Plus the fact that you got salt water everywhere that's eroding metal. It erodes concrete. It's a lot of upkeep. It's just unnecessary, and that's why it was closed in 1960 or 63, something like that. So where is Doge in on all this? Why aren't they saying, hey, this is wasteful spending, this is ridiculous, why the hell would you want to do this? it doesn't make sense. And I think this is going to die on the vine. I really don't think anything's going to happen here. It just sounds too stupid. And I think Trump is just throwing this out there because there's tariffs that are coming. We're going to talk about this probably tomorrow, but there's tariffs that are hitting now as of the weekend. And there's lots of other news. And I think this is like a smokescreen, more or less. And along with the next thing we're going to talk about is kind of like a smokescreen thing that doesn't really make sense, but it's just stupid rhetoric. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. Stranger things have been happening so far, and he's just over 100 days of this administration, so we'll see where this goes. But I have a hard time believing that this is actually going to be something that sticks. Along with this next thing, these are Trump talking about tariffs on movies from other nations. Let's hear what he has to say here.
Yeah, the movie tariffs, what they've done is other nations have been stealing the movies, the movie-making capabilities from the United States. And I said to a couple of people, what do you think? I've done some very strong research over the last week.
Strong research.
And we're making very few movies now. Hollywood is being destroyed. Now, you have an incompetent, grossly incompetent governor that allowed that to happen. So I'm not just blaming other nations, but other nations, a lot of them, have stolen our movie industry. And I'm saying, if they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, then we should have a tariff on movies that come in. And not only that, governments are actually giving big money. I mean, they're supporting them financially. So that's sort of a threat to our country in a sense. And it's been a very popular thing. I can tell you one thing, movie makers love it. Mr. President.
All right, so yeah, that was from The Guardian, obviously. So yeah, let's discuss this in a little bit more detail too. So 100% tariffs on movies. I don't know how the hell that's going to happen, but I want to talk about what he said and if other countries are incentivizing movie makers to come to their country and make a movie, and they can do it cheaper there, then I say why not? Go for it. If the United States wants to incentivize movies to stay here, then they have, they're more than welcome to do that as well, to give money to have movies made here. His kind of alluded to, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, saying that, he's not, he's terrible and he's letting all this happen. Oh, that might be partially true, right? Maybe Gavin Newsom needs to give some tax breaks and incentives and things like that to producers to make movies in Hollywood. But they don't only make movies in Hollywood, they make movies in other states around the country. Like the Lord of the Rings saga was made in New Zealand. I think maybe because New Zealand probably, made it worth their while, as well as the terrain and the backdrop and all that of New Zealand really was what the producers and director and the visionaries behind that wanted. So there's a lot of different things to that. And so just to take it and say, oh, well, yeah, we're losing everything is kind of disingenuous a little bit. So there was an article from Reuters that I'm kind of going to go through here. So it says in 2023, about half of the spending by U.S. producers on movie and TV projects with budgets of more than $40 million went outside the United States. So about half. Okay. So that's, I don't know if that's really bad or not. So it's hard to say. It says film and television production has fallen by nearly 40% over the last decade in Hollywood's home city of Los Angeles. The January wildfires accelerated concerns that producers may look outside LA. Camera operators, costume designers, sound technicians, and other behind-the-scenes workers may move out of town rather than try to rebuild in their neighborhoods. I mean, that's just something, right? Environmental conditions and risks and things like that. And it did say that there's a Prod Pro survey of executives found California was the sixth most preferred place to film in the next 2 years, behind Toronto, Britain, Vancouver, Central Europe, and Australia. So obviously those other countries or those cities, Toronto, Vancouver being Canadian, probably offer some incentives for, producers of movies to come there and film their movies. Hollywood producers and labor unions have been urging Governor Gavin Newsom to boost the state tax incentives to better compete with other locations. So that is something that locally, Hollywood producers, labor folks, all that can go to Gavin Newsom and say, "Hey, look, we're losing this. We want to produce more movies here, but it doesn't make sense to anymore. So make it worth our while." And that's not to say our federal government can't say, "Hey, if you want to make a movie here in the United States, we'll make it worth your while." But putting some sort of 100% tariff on foreign movies, I don't even know how that works. And I think they didn't really give any details on that either. So who knows how the hell that's actually going to work in practice. But I just found it pretty ridiculous. The former senior commerce official, William Reinsch, probably getting that name totally wrong, a senior fellow with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, said retaliation against Trump's film tariffs would be devastating to the industry. The retaliation will kill our industry, he's being quoted here. "We have a lot more to lose than to gain," he said, adding it would be difficult to make a national security or national emergency case for movies. That's another good point there, is like, what is your justification for imposing a tariff on movies? Is it really a national security or national emergency that movies aren't being made in the United States? That makes no sense whatsoever. It's, I don't know how that stands up, which is why I kind of said before, like I said, this is more like smoke and mirrors, getting us to talk about us, getting us to not talk about other things that are more important, like tariffs on auto parts and stuff that has just taken effect, that maybe people aren't going to talk about that because they're going to talk about this ridiculous tariff on movies, or the fact that we want to reopen and refit and expand Alcatraz. We can throw our horrible criminals like Abrego Garcia or somebody, instead of shipping them to El Salvador, we can throw them in Alcatraz. Doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's the idiocracy and stupidity that's come out of the White House over the weekend. Tomorrow, hopefully we can get to more serious things. And just a side note is that I may or may not be doing a video each week or each day this week. There are some other things that I might have to be taking care of instead. So just a forewarning that if I don't have a video one day, it does not mean anything. It just means that I had to take the day off. So anyway, I wanted to thank you all for listening. That's all I had to say for today. Thanks a lot. Really do appreciate you tuning in. And please do like and subscribe if you do enjoy the content. So thanks again. Take care. Be good to each other. And we will talk to you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.